Hey, everybody. Great to be here with you. I'm Carmel Clark, and I'm a transformational coach and a trainer, and I do all things about consciousness transformation, our self-development, all of that. So I'm going to just be talking today specifically focused on, excuse me, on you don't have to be perfect to be celebrated and supported. And I'm giving you this as a sneak peek of something bigger that I'm doing, but it feels really important to get it out there. So, yeah, let's take the journey today as I bring some new stuff. It's a bit deep. We're going to dive into it, but I think it's super critical and really important for all of us. I don't know particularly how this and I'd love to get feedback. I don't know how this affects men as much as I know how it affects women. So I want to make sure that I keep that door open for that conversation to happen. All right. So jumping in, where I want to start with this idea of you don't have to be perfect to be celebrated and supported is that I realized through one of my collaborators recently how difficult it is for me to seek support or ask for help, and equally how difficult it can be for me to be celebrated. So I was like, what the hell is this? So as I looked into it further, I became aware very keenly how vulnerable it felt to really open that up, both on the support side and the celebration side, to open up asking for support and being supported, really putting my weight on the support, as well as being able to be celebrated by others, because I had recently some rather big things to celebrate, some big successes. So as I looked at that and really sat with it, I wondered what this was all about. Found that, like, oh my God, it's pure vulnerability, right? In a certain form, this feeling of asking for or being supported and also being celebrated. What form is that? You might be wondering. I wondered. Strangely, I realized it's the same place, that vulnerability, that my imposter likes to hang out. We're going to talk about that because I've been doing a lot of work out there with people on imposter syndrome. So this was one of those new avenues in for me that I was like, oh my God, like really, this exists. So I asked myself, what was this drive in me for perfect execution of whatever it was I was doing, right? Because I had this feeling all the time, and you might too. In fact, I mean, so many of us do that. I have to have it be perfect going out the door um, in order to feel what? To feel safe, right? It's a feeling of safety, that perfect execution or that perfect presentation is that feeling of safety. And as I sat with it, I realized, because I've been telling myself it was, this reaching for the perfect, proposal, or the perfect training, the perfect, leading of the group, or the perfect workbook, the perfect live, right? All of these things. It wasn't just my inner artist, and it wasn't just my fine-tuned attention to detail. I'm an extremely detailed person as much as I'm a big picture person. And it also wasn't this holistic, logical drive in me to complete every circle. So there's, logically, I have to like bring it all together. I can't just leave it hanging. So it wasn't all of that, right? All of those things were there for sure. But this whole like getting it perfect, where did it actually originate from? My struggle to ask for and receive support as an adult or to be celebrated started in childhood, as it does for most of us. From my earliest memory, I remember that I was taught to be, well, incredibly self-sufficient. Maybe you were too, or maybe to some degree. So I remember at 14 and 15 years old, I had to get myself all the way across town to my soccer practices on my own, 3 times a week. And I remember that at 10 years old, I started my own paper route at my parents' insistence so that I could start earning my own money. They wanted me to have the experience of, starting to be self-supporting, even though I wasn't, paying for myself, to actually have that concept or that idea starting at 10 years old, which I'm very, very grateful for. but I'll link it all together here in just a moment. Other experiences, my homework had to be done, but it was all on me to do it. And so many more things like that. Then beyond that, here's the other part. When I get myself into a jam, as we do as kids, always, we're going to get ourselves in a jam in some way. I was immediately forced to pay the consequences. And on the plus side of that is the building of real radical accountability in a person. So I think that that part is really good. But on the other side, I also never felt safe to mess up or to fail. It wasn't safe. There were always like brutal life consequences that had to be addressed or made to happen no matter what. And then that communication through these experiences that I was on my own with no safety net, right? That was really that underlying message that was going on. So, no matter how you might have come to it through your own childhood or your experiences, like me, right? The message was pretty clear. You're on your own and it's all up to you. And so it's interesting because this is something that I teach and have taught for a long time. And it's not until just, here recently that I've looked at that and said, okay, that's very empowering and it's very important, but there's this other aspect to it that isn't necessarily great or even helpful. It might be getting in the way of my success, or it might be getting in the way of your success in the ways that it could happen, the greatest ways it could happen. And that's what I really want to dive into today. So this, hyper independence that we have uh, can actually be an Achilles heel, can turn us into uh, guarding against vulnerability, the very vulnerability that would help set us up for greater success. Let's walk into that. I think this is so crucial, really, really crucial for us. So, the way that it was working, you see, in this setup, support and being supported for me was a luxury. And I think it is for, many of us. This idea of being supported feels like, oh, yeah, it's a luxury, like I can't afford that, right? um, to receive that kind of support. And so for myself, I told this story that, my being independent and not needing support was better. Do you tell this story that you being that independent and, not, you know, having to rely on the support of other people is better for you in some way than, where I see people needing for and asking for support, right? I look at that and I keep myself safe by telling myself this story. And this meant also that my being celebrated risked becoming a dangerous ego trip if I wanted that. So if I was going to be celebrated or open myself up to being celebrated, to share what I was doing with other people sincerely, other than just like the people very, very closest to me where I felt the most safe, right? That I was risking this ego trip. And that meant, I really couldn't afford to relax into the celebration of my successes, even for a minute. They could all fall apart, right? No support for me. All those successes could fall apart in a second. So if I celebrated them with other people, I was setting myself up. Or they could weaken my independence on the other side of that by my receiving recognition from others. If I received that recognition, I was risking that independence that kept me safe, right? No. In other words, all those things that would make me vulnerable. But we have to be vulnerable to achieve success, truly, in our world. That's just fundamental. And I know we've come a long way and we're learning more about it. But it was interesting to me to have this experience of realizing the key factors of being supported, receiving support and being supported, and even asking for it, and celebrating and being celebrated, right? That these factors for a hyper independent professional can actually really bite us. It can be a huge undermining of our being able to achieve the opportunities for success that we have. So now there's a part two to this that I want to share. And that is that I realized as I was going through this, like we all do at a very early age, that merit is validated, right? We validate merit in our society. So that means that the better we do, the more successful we are. Just that's simple, right? And even though it's not said out loud, even though there's a lot of things that are said to try and, counter this underlying meaning in that, what it really means is that our value is equated as a person. Our value is equated to success. So merit is validated. The better we do, the more successful we are, and that success is equated to our value as a person. So think about that, whether it's grades in school or how we do our relationships, what you are as a parent, if you have children, meeting work performance expectations, how much money we make, how well we compete in sports, music, academics, the arts, all of these things. We're habituated to validate ourselves, our worth, by how well we do. So combine this validation cycle of success that we are all habituated to from the time we're born, pretty much, with learning that you have to be incredibly self-sufficient, that support and celebration makes you vulnerable and possibly weak. So right then and there, you have a perfect pocket in your psyche for the imposter to set up shop. As professionals, I believe we must face these three beliefs that hold back our greatest opportunities for success. Here's how I've broken them down. 1, we have to do it all on our own. 2, it isn't safe for us to ask for support. And 3, we have to be perfect or have our contribution be perfect in order to be celebrated. So I think these three beliefs really hold back these greatest opportunities that we have for success. And the crux of all three of these is our vulnerability. Ugh. Ugh. Cultivating resilience to our vulnerability begins by taking on the imposter directly. And this is something that I've been doing a lot of work with people on. We have to take on the work of our imposter by building our own self-awareness, right? So I'm not an advocate for these ideas of, here are the tools, stand in front of the mirror in the morning and tell yourself, I am enough, or I am, successful. I mean, those are great. I'm not saying those tools aren't, good, because they are putting into the subconscious these positive affirmations. However, I think that those tools have to be done on top of a foundation of self-awareness, of being able to see and know and understand ourselves truly, because uh, the vulnerabilities that we confront happen at the level of deep psyche and deep emotion. And so just saying out loud words over and over and over again is only going to work so far in certain circumstances. And when things really get hard or truly, really intensely vulnerable, right, that's where it will break down. All those tools can break down without the foundation of our self-awareness work. So I have some keys to get started on this. And I'm going to tell you also coming up that I have the wake up call event that I'm doing this next week. Thursday and Saturday, Thursday night, Saturday morning, 2.5 hours each time. And when I focus into the wake up call with this particular work, working on the imposter and what that is in our lives and how we confront it. And we're not just talking, this isn't a workshop, this is an actual experience where we're actually diving into your imposter that's going on in your life right now in whatever place, and finding the path forward for you so that you're able to move. That's what the wake up call is all about. It's a wake up call, transform the inner imposter. So when I do this, one of the essential components of that is this ability to see the self. You can't make any changes until you understand what it is you're changing and you stop running away from it or stop judging it. So we start with that place and then we continue forward. So here are the keys that I have for us to start the change. And this is also giving you a sneak peek into some of the stuff we're going to be doing this next week at the Wake Up Call event experience, Thursday and Saturday. That's the 19th and 21st. So some keys for us to start the change. 1, there are 4 of them. 1, I decide to not do it all on my own. I decide to not do it all on my own. This starts the vulnerability ball rolling. So you have to get used to this feeling. So if I say, okay, Carmel, I decide I'm not going to do it all on my own, all of a sudden I feel like the solid ground under my feet of that independence has been shifted, and I've only got part of my weight on there, because now part of that balance of where I'm standing has to be my receiving support from others. And that feels very uh, uneasy, right? When it's not the way you've done things, when it's not the way you felt safe in the world, then it can feel incredibly uneasy and insecure and even vulnerable. But you got to get used to it. You got to get used to that feeling by deciding to not do it all on your own. And then this decision in and of itself, just that decision alone, starts opening paths and opportunities instantly. So paths and opportunities for what? For greater success. If you look at people who have achieved immense success in whatever form, whatever way they're doing, they do have their own discipline. There's no question. Our own discipline is essential to that. Uh, at the same time, is this place where we have to open up that vulnerable space to be supported and to ask for and receive support in different ways at different times in key places, right? Without it, we shut off these other paths and opportunities that could help us achieve what it is we really want to achieve. It could be anything. It could be your career path, right? Promotional track, or it could be, opening up greater intimacy in your relationships. It could be being able to get your work out there in some way that you've really wanted to, as an artist or a musician, as a collaborator. It could be your marketing, right? If you're an entrepreneur, and what you're doing with your marketing, how you approach that. So there are all these different paths and opportunities for success that start to they come into play, I should say, the moment we decide I'm not going to do it all on my own. So that's number one, the decision. Number two is I decide that I'm worth being supported and having support. This can be a really big one for some people, especially if you grew up in a childhood or you had really strong experiences in your formative years that made being supported and having support either just it wasn't there at all, right? Missing entirely, or that it wasn't safe, right? If you got support, it always came at a high cost to you, or that the idea of support was anathema to your being a strong person. So getting support meant you were somehow weak. We all have these kind of mind games that, or most of us do, that, are centered around this idea of being supported and having support. So we have to decide in ourselves that I'm worth being supported and having support. Now that what that means is that if I put myself out there vulnerably and somebody decides not to show up and support me, it doesn't mean anymore that I must not be worth it, or that there was something wrong with me, or any number of conclusions we can come to that erroneously erode our worth and erode our trusting to take, our trusting ourselves to take those risks forward that we need to take. So deciding that I'm worth it really lets me cross that vulnerability barrier, and I can move into expecting that other people both want my success and want to support my success. So let me walk you through that again. I decide, or I'll say it this way, you decide you're worth being supported and you're worth having support. It lets you cross that vulnerability barrier so that you can expectation is crucial. You can expect that other people both want your success and they want to support your success. Now, how they support that success can be, differing ways. It can be from the sidelines cheering you on. It can be getting into the ring with you and showing up and doing things to help you achieve that success. It can even be bringing in components that you couldn't do yourself that actually bridge you to that success. But your permeability to that is based on you knowing that you're worth being supported and having that support and expecting it in your life. We must come to that place of expecting that other people want our success, that other people want to support our success, and that it's not going to undermine our strength and power or independence to be able to do that. And then number 3 is that I decide to be safe with myself, whether someone chooses to support me or not. This is big. This is big. I think, especially, I'm going to kind of step out on a limb here a little bit and say I think this is really big for women. And I don't have as much of an experience with men, but I observe that things work a little bit differently there. But if I'm wrong, please definitely come back and tell me, because I really want to be able to fill in that gap of my own knowledge there as much as I can. But I do observe that with women, this is particularly difficult. I decide to be safe with myself, whether someone chooses to support me or not. What does that mean? It means that it's not personal. We got to let ourselves off the hook of saying, oh, if they don't support me, it must be personal. They don't like me, or they're not, in favor of me in whatever way, or, they think there's something wrong with me or what I'm doing, any of those things, right? It's not personal. When someone chooses not to support me or not to show up in that way, or if they flake out and fall through, right? To look at that and just let them be where they are and not take it personally and be like, oh, okay, well, they just couldn't see it through, but I will find somebody who can. I will find somebody who does have it to be able to support me all the way, because I'm worth it, right? See how that works? So that also means, number 3, deciding to be safe with myself, whether someone supports me or not, is this key piece. We keep reaching out for support. And if we keep reaching out for support, we will find it. So carry that all the way through. I'm safe with myself regardless of whether someone supports me or not. It isn't personal, whatever happens, when I reach out for that support and expect that I'll be supported in some way, shape, or form that I know I need. And that means that I keep reaching no matter what the outcomes are, whether somebody supports me or not. I keep reaching for the support, and I will find it eventually. You will find it eventually, either sooner or later. You'll find that support. The best kept secret here. This is so amazing. Think about, I'm thinking about Lady Gaga, for example, right? Or I think about, some other, I think about some other people, right? That their success paths and how they went, because I love to kind of dive into those a little bit and see what happened, right? There wasn't a virgin birth. There was a lot of continually showing up, reaching out, being vulnerable, putting themselves out there again and again and again and again, the possibility of being rejected, the reality of being rejected, or just not supported, not, picked up. But this best kept secret is that the reaching out for support declares that we've already decided that we're worth it. Think about that for just a moment. The reaching out for support, my reaching out, your reaching out for support, declares that we have decided that we're worth getting it. We are worth it. So what that means in the opposite is that if we hold back reaching out for support for all the reasons that we might hold back, we are inherently saying to ourselves and, to the universe, or however that works, that I don't believe that I'm worth getting it. This is that hinge point. This is that best kept secret. Are you worth getting that support? Are you worth succeeding, or are you not? And that's putting the lie on this idea that I have to do it all myself. It really does. It puts the lie to it. So here's the 4th one, the last one. I decide to celebrate others and to be celebrated. I decide to celebrate others and be celebrated. What does this mean? So, first of all, it means that sincerely celebrating others and their successes opens us up to receiving our own success. If I'm not in the channel of celebrating other people's successes sincerely and openly and powerfully, then I have shut off my own channel of being celebrated in my success. And if I've shut off my own channel to any degree of celebrating my own success or being celebrated in my success, I've shut off the channel of my success to some extent, right? So just think about that for a second. Sincerely celebrating other people's successes and celebrating them and their successes opens us up to receiving our own. successes and the celebration of those successes. Second, under this one is any jealousy that we might feel. You ever felt that? You ever felt jealous in any way? Any jealousy that we feel is only the arrow pointing us toward our own risks that are calling for us to go after them. This is something that I learned a long time ago, right? That when I caught myself feeling what it turned out to be, I didn't realize it was, turned out to be jealousy. It was way down deep there, that little hook that can hook in. um, I had to sit with that and realize, oh, Carmel, that's somebody showing you what they're doing is showing you what you need to go after and take risks toward, right? Maybe not exactly what they're doing, but they represent that, right? So if you have jealousy show up in any way, it's telling you where you're supposed to be going right now, what you're supposed to be doing. It's that simple. And the risks that you should be looking at taking for yourself. That's what it's really telling you. And then finally, under this is give yourself permission to be excited, no matter the outcomes. This is key. One of the things that I realized I held back on for so long in my life was really, really letting myself be excited for the things that I was doing. I'd had so many experiences of failure or rejection or and not being safe in those places, right? That I couldn't let myself be excited, even when the things really happened all the way through. They were really that big. And yet, our excitement is part of the energy that helps to create the success that we want. Not just the discipline, but also our excitement. And it expands a life itself of those kinds of breakthroughs. So we need to make that part of this decision, right? To celebrate others and to be celebrated. We need to make it part of that, our ability to be excited, permission to be excited, no matter what the outcomes are. And then finally, last, is to be vulnerable to others celebrating us. I know that that might seem strange, and for some people, it's super easy. I watch other people be celebrated, like, yeah, bring it on. And they just like absorb it all in. And it's so great, right? I get a little like envious of that in a good way, right? Because it's hard for some of us to actually really be vulnerable to being celebrated by others. There's that like, that feeling of like, oh my gosh, all that energy coming into us of other people's celebration of us, of our successes. And it might even hurt a bit. I just want to say that practicing being open, like letting it come into us, letting ourselves receive those celebrations sincerely, right? There are no strings attached, no hooks in there, no, fear of the bottom dropping out or that our ego is going to take over and we're going to want to dominate the world or, whatever. Nothing like that. It's really just letting ourselves feel, get past, even if it hurts, get past that into really just letting ourselves feel that celebration. I promise you it won't kill you. I promise. So let me just go through those again, just really quickly, so I can recap this. The three beliefs that hold back our greatest opportunities for success are that we have to do it all on our own. It isn't safe for us to ask for support. And we have to be perfect or have our contribution be perfect in order to be celebrated, in order for it to be worthy and be celebrated. The keys to make the change, the four parts are: I decide to not do it all on my own. I decide I'm worth being supported and having support. I decide to be safe with myself, whether someone chooses to support me or not. And fourth, I decide to celebrate others and be celebrated. So those are the four places, the four different areas the decisions we can make, the four decisions that can start the change for us to completely reroute these beliefs into a method that will help boost our success, where we're able to not only be supported, but to expect that we will be supported, expect that others want our success and that they will show up to help us get that success, right? Feel that, feel it just kind of absorb into your skin. that expectation. Other people want my success. Other people want to support that success. And as we start to really build that into our psyche, in opposition to I've got to do it all on my own, we really open up this amazing new channel for ourselves, and make it more possible more quickly to be able to achieve what we've been wanting to do. And then coupled with that is this ability to be vulnerable to celebration, and for it to not have to be riding on we got it perfect. Because I think that that will keep us forever from achieving what we want to be able to do. Those are the message today I love to give to you. And I just want to tell you again, the wake up call event that I'm doing, Transform Your Inner Imposter, is coming up starting Thursday. The registration link is right there, so you can check it out. It goes through a lot of the details of what this whole experience is about. It's not like things you've really attended in the past. This is a doing it experience. That's why I call it that. We're not just sitting there learning about. We can do all the learning about and never take any action, never move the needle. This is you doing your own work right then and there. You come in from a certain place, you walk out from another place within yourself. That's what we do in the wake up calls that I lead. So come ready, join me. It's so inexpensive to just jump in and do this and have this experience with me, but come ready for those movements, those changes. Specifically, look at what we talked about today. Does it have to do with your receiving support or expecting that other people want your success and will support it? Does it have to do with you being afraid to celebrate yourself or to be celebrated? If those are keys for you that really pop up, then this is a perfect time and a perfect way for you to walk in and take care of that right now and have it actually shift and change so that you can move forward. All right, that's what I wanted to share today. I hope you guys are having a fabulous weekend, and I will catch you up very soon. See you again. Take care.